Whether you're running a business or you're an entrepreneur and out there trying to get yourself heard and seen, either way, there's always little tidbits in life that we need to do. Things that we can increase our visibility as a business, as an entrepreneur, and so much more. For a woman myself who has been in many different types of businesses throughout my life, it's time that we also sit back and listen to others who have also gone through their journey. Hi, I'm Glenda Kroll, and I'm here today with you as one of the hosts on Let's Get Real. And today we're going to get real about getting in your business and learning how to strategically change yourself. And my co-host today is my one and only.
I know, gone for 2 weeks, but finally back. I'm so excited. I'm Nicole Harvick, and I am going to be here with Glenda today. I think I remember how to do this. If not, I'm sure Glenda will remind me. But it's good to be back. Glenda, we did 2 years. We've done 2 years.
We have to celebrate because 2 years of consistently every single Wednesday showing up no matter what. So we're very proud of ourselves. And most importantly, we hope that you've learned something through these, because that's what we're here, is to help you to grow just that little bit more and maybe give you something that you can think of for yourself.
Absolutely. And, we always bring you amazing guests, and today's no exception. So I want to read just a little blurb because I want to get into this and hear what this wonderful woman has to say. And she is a serial entrepreneur. She provides top-tier COO services to help streamline companies, drive growth, and achieve strategic goals. But more than that, she's also an author of Missed Baby Steps, and that's about the loss of her stillborn son. And Glenda, I resonate with that because I went through that myself. And to go through it is one thing, but to write about it is another. So I feel that I have a bond there with her. So let's welcome Joy Harris. I'm so excited to talk to her.
Hello, Joy, and welcome.
Hey, well, thanks, ladies, for having me. It's truly a pleasure and an honor to be with you today on this stage, and also, Nicole, to share that bond with you. Not that that's one people want to share, but I'm grateful that we can have that conversation and share that information with people. So thank you,
yes.
thank you.
I agree.
And I believe when we show ourselves of really who we are, and everybody is touched by something in their life. So maybe through this, we can touch somebody else who might just be going through that now. And, they're feeling totally torn apart, and which we totally understand, and let them know that they're not in this alone.
Agree.
So, Joy, when we were talking about that, so let's hit on a few different subjects. And since we've already mentioned part of that, let's explain to our audience, because not everybody understands what we mean by that. So tell us about your book, first of all.
So my book is Missed Baby Steps, A Life Without First, and it's about the stillborn son that I had in 2001. I was 7.5 months pregnant when he stopped moving one day. And, you go through this in your mind of, oh, there's got to be a reason. He's just probably sleeping, right? I mean, he was a wild child. And so you go home, you read the book, What to Expect When You're Expecting, and it says, oh, this can be normal at this phase of pregnancy. And so I went into a denial stage for about 12 hours. And when I went back to work the next day to finish out a project, I said, all right, you need to go to the doctors, who I actually had to force my way in pretty much. They were like, no, you're fine. I'm like, no, something's wrong. And that's when they confirmed that he had passed. And it was such a surreal moment to think, how did this happen? Why did this happen? I was angry. I was mad. I was confused. I had to call my mom and listen to her scream. I had to lay on the table while they called my husband and told him that he had to drive an hour to come and get me with that information. It's just all this stuff that comes at you all at once. So
it's very overwhelming because it's like you hear it, but you haven't absorbed it.
No.
That you have to deal with this. And mine was 2001 as well.
Oh.
And and it was just, you sit there and you're, what? And I had my daughter with me. She was 7 at the time. And I'm like, I've got to get home, so I drove. I probably shouldn't have, but I'm like, okay, thank you. Why did but you don't know, your mind's not really formed anything but that. And so I'm so sorry that happened to you. It is very traumatic.
Yes. And sorry for you too. Did you have a boy or a girl that you
I had
lost?
a little girl. I had a little
Girl.
girl, and I think I was like, I was almost full term, and it was my last appointment before I was to give birth. And I didn't even have any idea. I could still feel movement, but what I found out, it was just her in the fluid moving around, because
Oh,
she had been very kind of docile. And like my first one, I'd feel a random kick, and but it was weird, Joy, because I didn't know what, but I knew the whole time something was very, very different. And I remember one day we had gone to the lake because I was pregnant in the summer. And I remember reading, what to do when you're expecting. They say if your baby's not moving around, drink cold water.
mhm.
And so I drank this huge glass of cold water, and she got the hiccups. So I thought,
Oh,
okay, I'm good. I'm good. But we weren't good. So, and
yeah.
come to find out, she would have had Down syndrome. So, you never know what it is. Could be the heart, could be. And I had a message from my guides one night, and they said she wouldn't have been able to do her work had she stayed in that body. So that kind of, it helps you a little bit knowing that maybe that was her choice.
Right. And it gives you some peace.
Absolutely.
Peace.
Absolutely.
And,
So,
and and like you, I knew I was supposed to do so. I was mad, and then I was like, what am I supposed to do with this? It took me, 21 years to figure that out, but I did figure it out. And the funny part about it was I have a doodle pad on my desk, and I used to draw hearts. Hearts. I'd have hundreds and hundreds of hearts on this doodle pad, and I'd just take it off and I'd do it again. And I'd be like, why do I have all these hearts? Why am I drawing hearts? I mean, I like hearts. And that's on the cover of the book. And once I decided
oh,
to cover the book, I didn't draw hearts anymore.
wow. That's an interesting story.
Yep.
Yeah. That's
And we
crazy.
also have to learn that when we're going through some forms of pain, no matter what it is, the one thing that women tend to do is they tend to blame themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very important thing that we don't blame ourselves for it. And, I understand when you're saying about, you've had a stillborn. I have two siblings that are special needs. So, I lived through a lot of my life always wondering, well, my brothers were much older than I am. I'm the youngest. My whole thing throughout my life was wondering why I was born. I always had that question even as a child. And we have to learn that you have to just accept things and they are happening for us for a reason, and to stop blaming ourselves. And I know because I lived through the years of listening, feeling my mother's guilt and for what she did of having two children with special needs, and how it took away from me as a small child, because later on she began to realize that I didn't get the same attention because of my brother. So we have to learn. As women, we tend to do it. Now, I'm not saying that men don't either, so guys, don't get upset with me. It's just, it is a thing for us women, is we blame ourselves for everything. You know what? Why is it raining today? We'll blame ourselves for that because that's what we do.
We
Yeah.
do.
So,
Yeah.
it's about, acknowledging, it's about feeling the pain, and it's about finding some form of grace and some form of, of something to be grateful for. And I think the gratitude is such a very important. People, I know when I've said, keep a gratitude journal, I always get feedback saying, oh, that's just I hear that all the time. What's the point? It's because when you're in a mindful of gratitude, then you don't have that other area of being angry and being mean and all the rest. And you do have a right to be angry,
Yep. You're
but
allowed to
for
have your
so
emotions.
long.
Mhm.
Well, and you're right about the gratitude, because I had a gratitude company, and gratitude and negativity cannot stay in the same space, and gratitude will negate anything negative. And sometimes I've even found where I've been in a public place where I didn't have a journal where I could sit and write something. And so I just closed my eyes and started saying all the things I was grateful for, because this person was just spewing negativity and I didn't know how to deflect it. So I just went into gratitude, said all these things I was grateful for. And when I opened my eyes, kid you not, the conversation started, the person had went away. I was like, that's so powerful.
Yeah.
You got rid of that.
I did,
Close
yes.
your eyes, be gone.
Pretty much, well, because it's energy.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, it's totally
absolutely.
true. Absolutely. So, but that's you've done, you've gone through that hard time in life. And, my kudos to you for making it through that and coming out ahead and even writing about it, because that's huge. But never mind that, you have done so many other things. So let's begin your journey, because you were in, as you started on the lower end. That was, that's where I started too, and most of us start at the very beginning, in corporate world. So let's talk about your journey in there and how you started, and then how you got to where you are today.
Okay, so yeah, I had plenty of jobs. When I moved here to North Carolina 30 years ago, my first job here was working in a hotel timeshare company because I just needed something, and that was the only job that was hiring at the time. And so I started there as a reservation agent and worked my way up to trainer and then inventory control. I did some accounting, collections, lots of things, because I was a quick learner. So they knew they could put me in different places. And then everybody, at some point, they started firing people for conflict of interest. Everybody got fired for the same reason. And I got my time and I got fired. And I remember going up to my daughter's daycare and sitting on the couch and crying because I had never been fired. So I didn't know, what am I supposed to do with this? I don't know how, not to work. I don't know what to do. So she graciously said, well, you can work here until you find something. So I found a job at a periodontal office. The funny part about that is I was a dental phobe. I had so many bad experiences as a child in the dentistry. And I was like, how did I end up here? Best job I had in a long time. The periodontist was amazing. It was a true team effort. And it was while I was there that I found out I was pregnant with Darian, and subsequently lost him, and then felt so lost. I'm like, nah, I don't know what to do now. I had actually started my maintenance company while I was working there, because a woman that I worked with at the hotel timeshare company was doing HOA and homeowners associations, was working across the street from where I was, and said, hey, let's grab lunch. Oh, sure. So we're sitting there having lunch, and she's telling me about what this HOA thing is, because I had never even heard of it. And she's like, well, we can't find a good maintenance company. And I smacked her on the arm and I said, Randy can do that. I'm like, my ex-husband was a carpenter. I said, we can totally do this. She's like, oh, okay. I didn't even think about you. So it goes to show, people don't always think about you when they're in there. You have to remind people what you can do. And so her boss said, sure, we'll give it a try. And here we are 24 years later, still have Cedar Grove Maintenance, which is always been my company. Mm-hmm.
Congratulations.
Thanks. And so from working in that industry, then people were like, you should do HOA management. I was like, oh, no, everybody thinks they don't like their manager. I don't want a job I'm not liked at. Well, guess what? I started an HOA management company. I grew it to about 50 properties, had it for 10 years. And I had gone to Florida to visit my dad, who had been sick from lung cancer. And while I was there, he passed. And when I got back, I heard God say, you're done, sell. So I did. Wow. I called my friend and said, hey, you know a guy who wants to buy this? I want out. I'm done. Had it sold. That was August. And so by December, I was done and sold the HOA management company.
I love that, because when you get a message like that, it's not you making that decision.
Yeah.
And when you get those are you have to follow those.
You do. And it was very clear. And I mean, I liked what I did. I was very good at what I did, but I think God was moving me. I was supposed to be somewhere else. I wasn't in the right place. And when we're not in the right place, we're going to get moved, whether we like it or not. Yes. It might be the easy way, and it might be the hard way.
And sometimes you get shoved.
Yes.
So you're like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
So that gave you experience in that type of fields. And where did that lead you from that point?
So that led me to, I had a gratitude company with my ex-business partner, now Kim, and we did that for about 8 years. And then she bought me out recently. And I went into going into full-time my COO role of being a fractional COO for companies, because I found what I really, really love doing the most is being able to come alongside of an entrepreneur or a small business who is they get stuck, and they know they're stuck, but they don't know how to move forward, and they don't know where to go look for somebody to say, they don't even know what they need to do to hire somebody. They're just like, okay, I got this far. Right. Now what? And it's so much fun to have conversations and see what other information we can pull out of business owners, because when you're a business owner, you have so much inside of you all the time. You're always creating and you're always thinking, and you're thinking of new ways or different ways. But sometimes you don't know how to put them together in like a little package and say, okay, let's do step 1, step 2, step 3. And so what I can come in and do is say, okay, let's put this on the whiteboard. These are our next steps. Here's where I would go first. Here's where I'd go second, and then go here, so that they have a roadmap to success.
Because too often than not, we're usually working in the business instead of on the business, correct?
Yeah, because when it's just you as a solopreneur, you're everything, right? You're the candlestick maker and the everything. So
Janitor.
Janitor, right? I mean, I remember when I started Cedar Grove Maintenance and I had lost my son, I also started a daycare so that I could make money while I was trying to do all these things. And I remember sitting in a rocking chair. I had a baby with a bottle in its mouth. I had a headset on with a pad of paper taking notes to make a work order. Like, I was doing it all. And then the kids would go away. My daughter would go to bed, and I would do invoicing until 10 o'clock at night.
Wow.
Right? You just do it. And then when you have to learn, when you learn, not have to, when you learn to delegate to elevate, game changer.
Yeah.
Such a game changer. Scary, right? It was scary to think I have to hire somebody. You go through because fear is our worst enemy, because it just holds us back, and it's stupid. It's just plain stupid. Because when you just pull the trigger and do the thing, you realize it all works out.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about if a person is a solopreneur, which many of the people in our audience are, and they're starting to build their own business as a solopreneur. Can you, give us a couple of examples of things that, as a solopreneur wants to start growing themselves, what are some of the things that they should be moving towards?
Yeah, so they should be moving towards, what is your end goal? Are you growing this business just for yourself? Are you growing it to sell it? Are you growing it to give it to your family? Either way, I always advise set up the structure. The one thing I didn't learn earlier on when I first started was start with the end in mind and have policies, procedures, and protocols. And by doing them when you're small, it makes it easier when you grow, that everything's ready there to go into play when you hire somebody and you start taking and growing. I have actually consulted with companies that are 20 years old that had 0 policies, procedures, or protocols, job descriptions. Oh, wow. They had no processes.
That's
and then
crazy.
They're so busy trying to keep all the balls going, right? You're juggling, and they don't know how to stop and take time to say, something's broken. We need to stop before the bleeding continues, and let's fix it so we can move forward.
And sometimes they don't even realize that there's bleeding that's happening.
Right. Because you don't know what you don't know till somebody says, hey, did you know?
True.
In fact, the one company was a cleaning company, and I used them before. And I said to him, I go, give me all of your contracts and tell me the days of the week that your guys go out and do all these. And so I took all that information and I drew it up on a whiteboard. And I brought him into the office and I said, do you want to know why you have problems on Tuesday nights? So here was Monday, here was Tuesday, here was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. There was no way his crews could get everything that was on the Tuesday list done. There was no human possible way. So they were just rushing around to do the minimum to try to at least show up. But there was no communication to say, why are we going back to these same properties every week? What's the commonality here? They just go and put the Band-Aid on, and then they keep, running as fast as they can instead of stopping and really taking a snapshot of what's happening.
So, okay, now we're going to continue on. So you're figuring out right away what you're doing. And maybe at this point, each week, starting to make notes of what's going on in your company each and every week so that you have an idea. Because sometimes people do things, unknown of what they do. Yeah. So not being aware, and awareness is a very important word. In business, it's an important word in life, of what they're saying and what they're doing, so that they can at that point, sort of begin to make a map of your business.
Yeah, you could either, you can call it a map, you can call it a journey, you can call it a plan, whatever works for you in your language of, what do you have and what do you want and how do you get there? And so the first time I had to hire employees instead of subcontractors was a little scary, because now we're adding on new things I had never done: workers' comp, payroll taxes, payroll, hiring somebody to be the office manager. Like, I had that, office manager and accounting are negative to a business because they're not generating money, they're taking money. So you're always thinking, well, how am I going to afford these things? And at the end of the day, it was how I couldn't afford not to have those people. Because like you said just a minute ago, Glenda, you're busy working in your business instead of being working on your business. And I had to get myself out of working in the business to working on the business.
And how did you step out of that fear? Because you said fear stops you. What was your catalyst to get out of the fear?
I just had an intuition that I need to hire somebody, or I can't, because I can't do it all, because I can't do it all well. I might be able to do it all, but I couldn't do it all well.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't love the accounting part of any of the businesses I've ever been in. So that was my first role, is I want somebody to do this because I don't want to have to deal with it. And I was lucky I was able to hire somebody again from the company that I worked for when I first moved here. She came and worked for me. She had construction experience and accounting experience. She was a great office person. So it was a great fit to have somebody that was easy to fill that position.
Good.
And we have to remember, though, that when you're going through all of these things, we don't have to be jack of all trades.
No.
So build the skills that you do well, build them more, and delegate the ones that you don't do well.
Yeah. And always be interviewing people. I mean, you would be surprised at how many people we meet every day that might be an exact fit for a job we have, and we never stop to ask them, hey, are you looking for a job? Or, I really like how you interact with your people, and I would love to talk to you about a position at my company.
Absolutely, because this is, more often than none today, a lot of people are holding more than one job, one position. There's, because of technology and that, it's easier to work at, especially if you have an accountant or that, many times, they have more than one business that they're running at one time, just, as far as one area is concerned.
That is for sure.
And I love your advice about just be asking people too, because, it's just like you never know who's going to hear what they need to hear. So that makes a lot of sense.
Well, it might not even be for you, because we all have friends. We probably all have friends that are in business who might have a position that they have open. I actually did that. I connected with somebody who said, somebody that they had connected was looking for somebody to join theirs team, and somebody I knew's niece was looking for a job. So through like 6 people, connected the people, and she's still working there today.
Wow. Great.
There's no way those two ever would have met had it not been through, hey, so-and-so's looking, do you know anybody? Just asking around.
Such a very powerful thing to remember, because there's so many times, it's part of the networking. So let's maybe touch a base into the networking aspect, because that's really important in every single job, in every single career and business in life, isn't it?
It is. It totally is. And I found I was like, when I was with Cedar Grove Maintenance and people would call and say, do you do this? Or I would end up saying, look, if you're not sure, always call me and ask me if we do it. If we don't do it, I'll give you a recommendation of somebody who I do know who does do it, that I already know, like, and trust. Yeah. So that I was the first call. I became more than just their maintenance company or their HOA manager. I became their resource for information. So I became more than just what they thought they had hired me for.
And I love that you added like, know, and trust. For me, that is so, so important.
Yeah. Well, it's sad that there's businesses out there that don't do the right thing for their clients, or they just go out and they take their money and they leave. It happens a lot in the trades business, which makes me absolutely crazy that happens. And one of the big reasons why we've been successful is because we are woman owned. We show up, we do what we say, and we stand behind what we say. We're going to do it. If it's not right, we're going to fix it. And because there's no way any company can ever say 100% satisfaction guarantee, because there's some things that are just out of our control. Sometimes my guys just have a bad day. They're humans. Yeah. They work outside and they work in the crappy weather. And some people are just not empathetic to that, to think, oh, I'm dealing with a human being and they messed it up. Well, okay, we messed it up. Just let me know. We'll fix it. Nothing's not fixable.
And I think that's really an important point in business, and especially as an entrepreneur. We got to look at life in a different way. It's not that mistakes happen, accidents happen, things go wrong, and it's not somebody's intentionally doing it. But giving somebody the benefit of the doubt to even to reach out and tell them something isn't working, something isn't the way you need it to be.
Yeah. Yeah, give grace. Because I can't imagine anybody that's even at a regular job. Do you do your job perfect every single day? And how would you feel if your boss came to you one day and said, "Hey, you know what, Joe? You didn't do that job right, and you have to go back and redo it, and we're not paying you to fix it because we paid you to screw it up, so we're not paying you to fix it." So,
Exactly. And we do have bad days. I mean, that's just as humans,
yeah,
maybe once in my life, but I did wake up cranky once.
one time.
One
Was it
time, I
before you had
think.
coffee?
So yeah, that's very true. And just remember the humanness of who you're dealing with,
Yeah.
and you never know what is going on in someone's life.
Mm-mm. And I've pointed that out so many times to employees and other clients, is sometimes when that person gets to you and they're like, you think they're mad at you, that was just the last person that made the contact. So you're getting it. Like when you go to the grocery store, maybe, and the cashier is like, seems like she's in a bad mood. Maybe something just happened to her and she has to come to work. Maybe she lost a loved one, but she has to come to work to pay her bills. So yeah, she's not in a great mood, but she's here trying to serve you the best you can. And you had no greeting to her. There was no, "How are you today?" You were just rude with her, like, "Can't you hurry up?" Right? It's how are you showing up as a human being everywhere, whether it's you're the client or your clients are seeing you.
Yeah, and there's another example of when we need to show grace as well, because we don't know. And if you don't know, just don't say anything. You don't always need to come back with something. Walk away with your head held high and extend grace to someone.
Yeah, and it's a hard one because our natural innate instinct is a negative one. Sadly, we have to
Yes.
work on having more positive thoughts.
And
so
that's the good old ego. Yeah. The good
yeah.
old ego. Yeah, definitely. I
So
love
just take
that.
that moment and stop and breathe in between and say, "Oh, maybe they're having a bad day. Don't. It's not personal. We got to stop taking everything so personally."
Exactly. It's not always about us.
Mm-mm.
So I'm going to bring you back again. So we first of all, we look at the procedures that we need to in a business.
Yep.
We start filling out what we need to, build in that area. What is the next step you would start looking at for a company or an entrepreneur to start doing?
So when we put all that into play, then I think it's also going to be looking at what is working well and what is not working well, and asking your team. If you've got some employees, ask them, "Hey, is there a better way you think we could do some of these things?" Because a lot of the times employees do have ideas, but a lot of times they're not asked. And it's super important to ask them because they're the end user. An example of that is when I was working at the first company, we had two computer systems, one for the hotel part, one for the timeshare, and we were a dive operation. And they had a great idea. We were going to get a company to write software so we would have one computer for the reservations. And so all the upper echelon management was in there doing all these things. And our boss came out and he was excited. He's like, "Oh, we're going to do this and that." And I looked at him, I said, "You can't do that." He goes, "Well, what do you mean? They just told us they could create the program." I said, "I don't care if they can create the program. You have contracts that are out there that say you can't do that." He's like, "Oh, you're right." And he grabbed me and he dragged me down into the room. And he's like, "Explain to them what you just said." And so being the end user, I have a different perspective of how something's working than somebody who's just above in management saying, "Oh, push the button, push the button." So it's really important when you're doing something that big with systems and computers and CRM tools to make sure that the end user has a say, or at least can look at it to make sure it's going to work for everybody.
Well, or I would actually say just what you said at the beginning part of them, make them part of it all.
Yeah.
I remember many years ago when I worked I used to work for Shell Canada, and I was in I was an analyst, so I was involved with setting up all the terms of every location and paying rents and mortgages and so on. And I was in part when we went on computers, because I did everything manually in those days. And then when we went on computer, I was involved with setting up the whole system with the person who was doing all the work, because I knew the way things were. So we have to learn that we have to give people that are doing the work. You've got to be bringing them into the piece. And if you are even on the other side of things, if you are an entrepreneur and you want to put things out there, it's really important to ask your clients, ask your customers what they think.
Yeah.
It's one, it works out as just the other, because you don't know what's going on in somebody else's head.
No.
And that can actually help build you more than anything else that you can possibly do, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point.
So our customers do know some of the things. Our customers know what we have to understand what their pain is. We have to understand, are we giving them the service that they need? And also, we're also not perfect. So maybe there's something we're missing.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And a lot of times we are, because again, like I said earlier, we don't know what we don't know until somebody says, hey, did you know? And if we're not asking, we're never going to get the answer, because some people are just going to voluntarily say to you, hey, did you ever think about doing it like this?
Yeah.
Or did you know you might have a problem with this person that's in this role because here's some things that happened? A lot of times people are going to leave you and your business, and you're not going to always know why if you don't ask. So sometimes they teach you to do an exit interview with an employee. They don't teach you to do an exit interview with a client.
Interesting.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great idea. You can, when you finish with clients and stuff, surveys, all sorts of things, and you can entice people to whether there's a connection, something to give you feedback.
Yes.
And if someone's leaving, to ask them why they're leaving.
Yeah, and the survey's great, but you know what? I'm today. I actually just today was sitting here this morning thinking, we've got all of this amazing technology. We've got AI. We've got all this. I'm like, but you know what? I want to get back to people. I just want to have a conversation and just ask you on the phone, or hey, let's have coffee. And I say, what happened? Just so I know, so I can learn from it and grow.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Surveys are great, but most people won't do a survey, because they feel cold. If you really wanted to know, you'd call me, right? A lot of us, as I should say, our generation would, because we had that experience before. Some of the younger generation may not have had that, because they had been in computers and in their phones, and they're not as connected. But I want us to get them back to being connected and having these conversations with people.
I love that. And I think it's really important. We've lost the connection.
Yeah.
And it's all about relationships. Everything is based on relationship. Tell me, if somebody can tell me one thing that's not based on a relationship, I want to know.
Yeah. And just that, I've always said this, I love to utilize the text, because you can do something really quick, but you can't emote on it. You can't see facial expressions or body language. So you're going to get a complete different idea or message when you do it in person.
Mm-hmm. Well, because you might read the text or the email with where you are emotionally, and not where the person sent it emotionally or non-emotionally.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Even though they're just words, people still add emotion to them.
Well, and that's why even physically being in front of somebody, because I'm a big advocate of body language, and people can feel the emotions from you. If you're excited, whether you're either positive or negative, it doesn't matter. But if somebody's leaving your company for a reason too, just like you're saying, it's really good to understand. And and there's sometimes you can rectify things. That's kind of an actual bonus.
Yeah. And at least offer that. Some places don't. I mean, I think it's something that you have to be taught or understand. And again, I work a lot with trades industries, and sometimes they just don't know, because they may not care, or they may not have the capability of doing that because they didn't do it anywhere. It goes back to communication, relationships. if they didn't have that type of relationship in their family life, they may not have that in their business life. It just might be something that's not been taught or around them, so they know. And so when the client leaves, they just don't think anything of it. But if that unhappy client is out there, they're going to be giving you negative reviews, because sadly, people give you a negative review before they give you a good review. So it's important to have that conversation.
And I love that because, well, especially when you're talking of contractors, if somebody isn't doing the job right, those are the people sometimes that don't want to know. But if you're like, you have people that are working in your company and they're not doing the job right, you want to know from that as well, because you don't need to keep employees or even having contractors under you that aren't doing the job the way you need it to be done, having the quality of work to be done.
Yeah. And some of it is that they don't know how to handle it. So look at an entrepreneur who starts a business. Let's say I'm a plumber, and I'm a great plumber, but I don't want to work for XYZ plumbing company because I don't like structure and I can do it better. So I go out and I start my own company. Well, I start this company and I just go out and I start getting customers and I start fixing things. I send them a bill, they pay me money, but I don't know anything else about anything. I don't understand what really customer service means and why it's important. I don't understand and know how to deal with when I maybe hire an employee and I'm having problems with them, and how to properly, teach them better or discipline them, or however you want to structure that, because they didn't know to go take a class. They didn't know that there was a way for them to learn how to do this better, or to hire somebody to come in and help them with that, because you don't know what you don't know till somebody says, hey, did you know? And so hopefully with this type of a conversation, that business owners, especially solopreneurs or tradesmen or something, or anybody who's just not sure, they learn to reach out and get coaching or help. I don't think they know.
True. And it's true. You can't, whatever you don't know, you don't know.
No. I didn't know so much about even personal development until later on in life, which I wish I had learned about it when I was younger. And it's, my ex-business partner said it so well. It's like, okay, people, when they're in sports, have coaches in school. And when they go on and they get into the big leagues, look at how many coaches they have. They have coaches for every part of their athletic and physical and even what they eat. And then the rest of us get out of school or college and we have nobody teaching us anything. When did education need to stop? And yet they tell you you're supposed to learn something new every day, but they don't tell you how to go do that.
Well, the other unfortunate part is people look at it as like, I can't afford that. But, you look at, if you really want to build yourself, your business and your life, you can't afford not to have that.
Yeah.
It's what we got to learn to invest in is ourselves. That's where we need to look at the importance of life.
Very well said, Glenda.
Yeah.
And Joy, I have a question for you, because you said you deal a lot with the trades, which is generally men. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, as a woman-owned company, what's the feedback from the men? Are they okay dealing with you now? Because I know my dad was in the trades, a carpenter for a long time. And even when I went into real estate, it was male dominated. How does that affect you today? Is it any different, or do you still have pushback from you telling them how to do something or where to go or what to do?
I've had 90% success of being respected and understood, and only probably say like the 10% who just didn't want to deal with a woman. Being here in the South in North Carolina, I get a lot of people who don't respect women at all and don't want a woman in construction, and don't think that I really know what I'm talking about, and yet challenge me. Let's talk about it. A lot of people thought I just did it because my ex-husband, so we could be 100% woman owned. No, I still own it and we're not married. So that'll tell you. And I've done roofing. I've climbed under houses with, my little zoot suit on, and I've done all that kind of crazy, yucky work because I didn't want to ask one of my employees to do something that I hadn't done. No, they probably can do it way better than I can, because I do think men are better at construction than most women. There are some great women construction people out there. I'm never going to say that there's not. But I had women employees, and they were actually harder for me to manage than it was to deal with the men.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Harder for you to manage in what respect?
There was a lot of attitude of that I'm just as good as he is, and felt like they always had to prove it. I'm like, I don't need you to prove it. I just need you to do your job.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that's how it is in any kind of thing. Like, I don't need you to try to prove something. Just do what you're supposed to do. That's why I hired you. And it's so hard. I mean, I've been in, like I said, I've had several companies and I've worked at different places, and just watching some people that feel like they should be making more money or they should be doing this. And I'm like, well, if you think you should be making more money, then did you ask for more money? Because when I hire people, I pay it based on their experience. If I have a guy who's got 10 years experience and I just hired you fresh out of high school, you're not going to make the same amount of money. You have to earn that rate just like he did.
And I think that's what you're saying is an important factor too, is we need to speak up for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the most important things, is we need to be verbal in a respectful way.
Yes.
So, stand up for yourself. And I know I had that throughout my entire career, because like I said at the very beginning, I've been in very many different industries throughout. And, at one point when like I said, I worked at Shell Canada, I was the only female amongst 65 men. And I was knocked down at one point, and somebody felt that I didn't know what I was doing. And I had to stand up, and I needed to prove myself. And it's fine, because when I did that, is I commanded a very different level of respect.
Yeah.
So we have to learn that if you know what you're doing, but at the same hand, if you don't know, it's okay to ask. And here's what the one important thing that people need to understand out there, that we don't need to know everything in this world.
No.
So asking for help, asking for confirmation or understanding is such an important tip in life, because maybe you understand to a bit, but maybe you need to have more of a fuller understanding of what that person is trying to have to be having done, or whatever they're actually looking for. It's okay to say, let's confirm this, because I'm not sure I quite understand what you're looking for, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and so that goes back to communication. So we talked about relationship earlier, and communication is the one right now that I think is the hot topic. We are in a society that is not communicating well. We're not.
Right, because we're too on our phones, and we're too busy. We're too busy texting and being
multitasking too. We multitask, which I've come to the conclusion with me that I can multitask, but not everything as well as if I would just do that one thing, get it done, and go to the next. And that was that chest beater for a while in the 90s and early 2000s, is I'm multitasking. I suck at it. I'm just going to say it. I mean, I'm like, that was schlocky work, girl. So yeah, I gave up. It's like, no, I'm just going to focus on whatever I need, get that done, and go to the next.
That's time blocking. I didn't know about time blocking for a long time. I was that multitasker too, because I always had two companies for 24 years. So I felt like I was always switching hats and doing something. And then I realized, oh no, I need to block time and just focus on that one thing. And when you can learn how to do that and do that well, like, your day just gets so much easier. Don't you agree?
Let's talk a bit about time blocking, because not a lot of people, I work by the same method, but not everybody understands time blocking. So let's discuss that a little bit.
Yeah. So I have a client who is in the HOA industry, and it's, a busy one, just like doing construction. And I said, do you do any time blocking? And he's like, I don't even know what you mean. I said, in the beginning and end of your day, or in the middle of your day, just block 30 minutes. Turn off your phones, turn off your computer, and just focus on whatever projects and tasks that you have at hand that have to get done. And then once you get them done, because you'll find out it usually doesn't take as long as we think. We think, oh, this project's going to take me an hour. I have to review this stuff. It usually doesn't. When you can have focused, blocked time, you can usually get things done really quickly. And then if you get it done early, then you can go back and turn your phone on in your email and, listen to the ding, ding, dings as they come in. But doing that a couple times a day, you'll be more productive, and you'll have some laser focused time to get your tasks done. but then you have to be committed and do it.
Yeah.
You can't say, I'm going to block this time and then let something else take it over. You have to protect your time. That's your job.
Yeah, and that's where my ADD kicks in, because I'm like, I shouldn't be doing that. I should be. So I'm going to make a note of this to be laser focused. I like that terminology.
You'll hear me and you'll hear Joy just said.
Joy told me to be.
You need to call me. You can call me. I'll be your accountability person. I'll say,
perfect. I love it. Yeah. Yeah. I'll turn the phone off so nothing will show up. Black screen.
I actually, my phone, when I'm doing certain time blockings, I put my phone in the other room.
Smart.
Because I can't have my phone beside me. It's like I'm falling over to the other side. It's trying to change the lane. And so for me, especially my mornings are time blocked. And I don't take my phone out. I leave it in the other room, and I put to do the hardest tasks first in the mornings, as well as doing my other stuff in the beginning part. But it makes a difference to take it out because, as we said earlier, acknowledging certain things in your life, for me, the acknowledging is that if my phone is beside me, it's going to start creeping back into me. So I have to put it away from me to do that. And then having a breakdown of what I need to do. At least, as they say, find 3 important tasks that you want to get done in the day and take the hardest one and put it first.
So here's a question for you then, Glenda. After you do that, do you celebrate your successes that you got it done and checked it off?
Absolutely.
Yay! I didn't know that was a thing, but it's so important to celebrate your wins.
I am a very big advocate on celebrating my wins, and I'm a very big advocate on giving myself grace when things don't go the way I want to.
That's important too. That's super important.
You mean so they don't always go your way 100% of the time?
Yeah. But it's,
said yes, I'd call her out on it.
No, but here's the thing, right? Life teaches us. I consider myself, in my handle as in my Instagram is the wise woman. Well, it wasn't as that I've been wise all my life. At this point, I am wise because of what I've been through. So, you know what, for years, I didn't do a lot of these things. It's just these things of what I've learned. I also have mentors. I have mentors of my own, and my mentors teach me of what to do to help me. As I said, even though that I am a mentor, it doesn't mean that I'm not mentored.
Right.
That's the whole key of it all.
Yeah.
Mentors have mentors, coaches have coaches, mentors, whatever. Yeah. But we all have to have somebody who helps to guide us through. And that's how, the people look, we're in right now the Olympics. There is no person right now that are in the Olympics that don't have themselves being coached.
Exactly. And not only that, it's a whole lot more fun with somebody else. It just is. Right? When you have, oh, hey, Darlene, how are you? So yeah.
Yes, and thanks for joining us today, Darlene. We appreciate it.
When you can do things together, you find you can get a whole lot more done. You can come up with a whole lot more things that you might not have even thought about because you're having a collaboration with somebody and just brainstorming and just letting people be people and see what comes out, because we all have so much to offer. We all have gifts.
And you just said at the beginning, we don't know what we don't know. Mm-mm. So how do you get better, get stronger if we don't know it?
Yeah. And if you're not sure that you don't know something, you join a group with women and ask them, we'll tell you.
And, I admit I love to learn and I don't know everything. And as you're talking about this, I know, can you believe it, Glenda? I had you fooled, didn't I?
You're just perfect, Nicole.
There's an app called Al that Glenda and I are both on, and it's like 10-minute conversations. And right before I came on here, I had a 10-minute conversation with someone, and I made a comment about teaching my daughter to jump over fear, and then you're free for the rest of your life. She goes, you need to write a book about teaching parents, 10 rules for kids. She goes, do you mind telling me, are you a Gen X? I'm like, oh, dude, I'm a baby boomer. I'm like, I'm so old, So she goes, you'll be perfect. But I mean, I know I'd have never thought of that. You know, just speaking, connecting, listening. That's important as well. So yeah, I love that.
I love that you brought up listening. I just sent that the other day to somebody. They said, what is an important skill to have in your business? I said, to be a good listener.
Yes, so important. And that is a skill. I like that people don't know how to listen. They'll interrupt, or they will, they don't pay attention, or they're on their phone. You name it. And listening it should be coveted. It's so important.
Well, when you truly listen to somebody and they know you're listening, then they feel valued.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very true. We've got this society that their eyes wander looking around. And I can't tell you, when you go to functions, to network, if someone does that to me, I'll walk away.
Yeah.
I'll walk away. It's like, nah, I'm out.
Yep. You're not my people.
You're definitely not my people, so.
And I think that's really, one of the biggest things is learning that we need to make people feel valued by not just showing up, but by actually listening to what they're saying, asking questions.
Yeah.
Also a very important thing of asking questions to people, right? Asking.
Yeah, because then it shows you're present.
Yes, that you've paid attention.
And it's a conversation. Again, right? We're going back to conversations, relationships, like all that brings all that back around.
Life is a full circle, isn't it?
Yes. It is. Totally is.
I love that.
So if you were, we're now getting closer to the end of our time. I told you it goes by this a little bit too fast.
It does.
But tell us, what type of golden nuggets could you give to people that are right now working on their business or in their business, as in a business or as an entrepreneur?
Well, first, if you haven't started your business journey, because 92% of the population has the dream of having a business and they never do it because of fear, start. You heard my story. I started over lunch. I didn't think about it. I didn't map it out. I just did it. Were there bumps along the way? Yep. But those are the things that help make you a better business person. Don't be afraid to look for other people to delegate to elevate. If you're not good in accounting, hire somebody to do your books. You don't have to have them as an employee. There's lots of people you can hire to just work for you a couple hours a week. Find those people, they're out there. And make sure that you're in getting coaching of all different kinds, whether it's just for self-improvement, because you're not a different person in your business than you are outside of your business. So when you're doing self-improvement, you're also improving your business. And when you don't know something, just start asking people questions. Hey, do you know about my business? Is there anything you see in my business that you think I could do better? Or have you heard anything about my business that maybe I don't know about? Ask questions, get nosy.
Yeah, I love that.
But if you have something that's holding you back and you're feeling fearful, just talk yourself out of it, because fear is not real. Because you have to ask yourself this question. What's the worst thing that could happen to me if I do X? What's the worst thing? Nothing really, really bad should happen to you. I mean,
right.
You shouldn't lose an arm or anything.
Yeah.
Right? And
I agree. And fear just stifles people.
Well, because they think they're going to do what? They're going to fail. Failure is not a bad thing. It's just something that didn't work. So it's telling you don't do that again and redirects you to a different way.
Right. Just feedback.
Yep. Go look up Thomas Edison and how many times it took him to make the light bulb. What if he'd given up?
Right.
Right. And so many others, right? If you start looking back in history.
Yeah.
It's very, oh my God.
Right?
Hello.
All of us. Yeah.
I've started 7 businesses. I must have failed somewhere along the line.
I think when you, like we were saying earlier, if you learn that you can accept failure and stop looking at it as failure and looking at it as a learn instead of a failure. And I really believe that it is so important It's part of the mindset, right? When you look at it, instead of saying that, it's something saying, okay, that way isn't going to work. So let me see how I can tweak it, and if it doesn't work this way, I can try this way. And if it doesn't work that way, then you can keep on, moving the dial until it does work.
Yeah, because eventually it does.
Yes. And eventually it all works out. And then you sit back and you go, wow, it was that
Look at
easy.
me.
That wasn't as bad as I thought.
Exactly.
Or, oh, I didn't fail. Or
So
I started a company, grew it, and sold it, and I never even wanted to get into the industry. So,
wow, that's great. That's so awesome.
Just take action and do it.
And I think, thank you very much. I think that's one of the biggest golden nuggets that, that we could tell people today is just do it, and stop worrying about the what ifs and just move on and do it and try it.
Yeah, because we're not in control.
We're not in control. Somebody else
that's what I learned with Darian. Full circle was,
yeah,
I wasn't in control. I thought I was, but that's when I learned I was not.
We're so
and then, it was learning to be okay with that.
I love it. Well, Joy, I want to thank you so much for bringing some bright light onto us today. Some really great nuggets that you've shared with us. Those who haven't been able to watch it all, please go back and listen to some of the many golden nuggets that Joy has shared with us. And remember, if you want to reach out to a woman who really is mastering so many things, her link is below our video, and you can find out more by talking to her directly. And before we always leave, we have to do one other thing. We always come to our dear Nicole, who tells us her summations about today.
This has been an amazing conversation, and I personally have learned so much, right down to the time blocking, which I've tried to do. And like I say, but I like putting the phone away. I like that. And I like, really a half an hour goes by so fast that I know I can do this. But the two things I like the most about this whole conversation are really getting back to the basics of listening and communication. And that just shows respect for people. That just shows that that you feel they're important, that they're worth listening to. And even if you knew something that they're talking about, you've given them that feel-good moment of listening and making them feel worthy and making them feel special. And to me, just those two things alone, which, I taught my kids to do because I think it's so important. Don't interrupt, let them finish a sentence. And I think that those two things, if you take nothing else away from this, learn from Joy that communication and listening is so, so important and so, so needed in this society.
Thank you, guys. This has been a true pleasure.
Thank you. It's been wonderful.
We enjoyed listening to you, and you reminded us of some of the most important things in life. And if we all learn to sit back just a little bit more and listen and just be respectful of one another, what a different world that we would be in, wouldn't it be?
100%.
So thanks for joining us today on Let's Get Real. Send us a little love. Share this with somebody who maybe needs a little bit of reminders or wants to learn a little bit more about building their own business and practicing some different things in life and in everything in life, because everything comes together in a full circle, no matter what industry you're in. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next week on Let's Get Real.